Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news, and update live stream show. Today, we're going to talk a lot about Amorim's brutal approach. It's got all Manchester United players pretty scared, to be honest. Nobody is safe. Amorim has warned the players. It doesn't matter who you are, how special you are. It is perform or go time. And look, one thing we know about Ineos is they want to get the wage structure down. One thing we know about Amorim is if he doesn't like you, he ain't going to play you. And the next two exits have pretty much been confirmed in regards to Casemiro and Maguire not going to be given new deals. But we're also going to talk about a number of things going on inside Manchester United. Obviously, we spoke about the Højlund and Arne situation, how both players were originally refusing to leave the club and Amorim forced them out. And that was Amorim's example of perform or you go. Because Højlund and Arne were brought 2 seasons ago. It was hard to sell them. They weren't going to leave, and we went and got the replacements and they were gone. And if Amorim doesn't rate you, he's not going to play you. He's going to be brutal with that. And it's a warning for many players in and around Manchester United. So, big up everybody watching today's show. We've got a lot to talk about in regards to United rebuilding, the plan with the wage structure, the plan with the deadwood players. But first of all, how are you doing? It is the international break still, but it's one of those international breaks where I just can't wait till football's back. Big game against Manchester City, and if we beat Manchester City, it'll be the first time we've won back-to-back Premier League games in nearly a year and a half, which is a really scary stat to think about, but I just want football back. I hate the international break because every time there's a little story, it becomes a big story, and you just worry about players getting injured. And look, we're Tuesday, 3-4 days, and football is back. And don't make me regret wanting football back, Manchester United, when we play Man City in the derby. We will have a conversation. I'm going to ask you below. Versus Manchester City, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you throw Saint-Lamens in for his debut, or would you rather go with someone like Bayern Deer? Let me know who you'd start and goal below, but let's talk about the news. I hope Agate stays because he's really, really good when played right. Agate is someone, and this is how I describe Agate. He's not someone that makes your best starting 11, but he is a good squad asset to have. Agate would never make our best starting 11 if we want to be an elite level team because of his liabilities on the ball. But there's certain games where Agate is good. There's certain games where Agate is a liability and you just don't want him anywhere near the team. And there's other games where Agate is good. And I think he suits certain games but not other games. And it's a good squad asset to have in certain games. Lamens. Yeah, a lot of people saying he can't be any worse than Bayern Deer. Let's just start Lamens. City have not looked good in their opening games, but they will be hungry against Manchester United, of course. But look, I think Agate has value, but not as a starter. But look, we spoke about Elliot Anderson and Baleba yesterday, but I do want to talk about, obviously, United's first 2 exits pretty much being confirmed. Harry Maguire and Casemiro are among players currently set to leave Manchester United for nothing next summer, with club officials due to make calls over their respective future. So we know that Maguire and Casemiro's contracts at Manchester United are set to expire at the end of the season, and Manchester United, as of now, have no plan for renewing the players. Now, this season, Casemiro is crucial. Our best midfield 2 going into the season is Casemiro and Bruno. Casemiro is going to become one of the most crucial players this season because we did not sign Carlos Baleba and we did not sign a midfielder. But even though he's such a crucial player this season, Ineos' stance is, well, we won't need him next season. In the past, someone like Casemiro will be crucial because we didn't buy anyone in the summer. So because they were so crucial, we'll extend his contract another year. Whereas Ineos are sort of like, well, he's going to go, we're going to save a lot of money on wages, and that's going to give us the funds to get Casemiro's replacement. Casemiro's on 350 grand a week. With obviously not having Champions League football, I think it's down to about 250k a week. But it's still a significant amount of money. And United are looking at saving 17, 18 million pounds a year by getting Casemiro out the door. So while Casemiro has been quite good for us lately and really improved his form, and while he's pretty crucial this season, even if he's crucial this season, Manchester United wants him out the door because of the funds that he's on. Maguire's on 200 grand a week. Losing Casemiro and Maguire next summer on a free saves us nearly 30 million pounds a year. And while United see value in Maguire as a good squad player, and while United think there's value in Casemiro as an experienced squad player, and both Casemiro and Maguire in Ruben Amorim's leadership squad, they're not in the plans for next season. And that is another example of why not many players are safe at Manchester United. Casemiro and Maguire in the leadership squad, but because Ineos want to restructure the wage structure at Manchester United, just because they're in the leadership squad, just because Ruben Amorim values them highly, doesn't mean that they're going to stay. If Ruben Amorim doesn't rate you, you're gone. If the club doesn't rate you, you're gone. Even if you're in Ruben Amorim's hierarchy of leaders, if your wages are high, you're gone. And this is Man United saying to players, look, this is the end of player power. This is the end of you getting ridiculous wages out of us. If we don't like you, we won't play you. We won't play you. We will sell you. We are not going to extend your contract. We're not going to be giving out silly wages. That's Manchester United's way of being forward with the players, and I like it. Thomas said Lemens is as bad as Onana, had some howlers last year. From what I watched of Lemens, he's not perfect 10 out of 10 keeper, but I think for the value for money, we've got a good keeper, a good shot stopper. And in my opinion, from what I've watched, he's an improvement on Onana. There's a big psychological factor when it comes to playing with Royal Antwerp compared to Manchester United. There's a psychological factor where I think naturally you can be a really good goalkeeper at one club and you could go to United and struggle because of the pressure, the media attention. If you make a mistake at Villa or Everton, you're not going to get the same level of attention as a goalkeeper that would make a mistake at Manchester United. And I think that could swallow up Onana and a lot of goalkeepers. But from what I've watched, I do think that Lemens looks better than Onana. Of course, how can he do it in a Man United shirt? How will he cope with the pressure? There's lots of things to be asked about. He's not the perfect 10 out of 10 keeper, but I think it's a good keeper stats-wise, value for money. There's a good shot stopper there. I feel quite positive. Ange is back. Nuno was gone. We all knew that was coming. But will they regret it? Will they regret it? It's obviously to do with Mr. Marinakis. And look, if Ange wants to sell us Elliot Anderson, please do. But yeah, I was talking about Maguire and I was talking about Casemiro. They're two players that Manchester United want to offload and plan to offload. Even if they're in Ruben Amorim's leadership squad, they want to restructure the wage bill, and their exits have pretty much been confirmed, which makes me want to talk about sort of Amorim's message to the players, which is perform or go. And Ineos' message to the players is if you're on high wages, you're not going to last unless you take a wage cut, which is the message. So, Casemiro and Maguire's contracts are not expected to be renewed, exits all but confirmed. This adds to this brutal rebuild of Anthony, Sancho, Rashford, Garnacho already forced out. They're in the bomb squad. You had Onana and Højlund that were not in the bomb squad because United thought it was going to be difficult to sell them because the players were refusing to leave, despite Monaco being interested in Onana and Inter being interested in Højlund. Both players refused to leave, and then Man United went and brought the replacements, and both players effed off. Amorim has no hesitation at clearing names no matter how big. Big wage players go. Bomb squad players, attitude issue players go. Onana and Højlund, you were only signed 2 years ago. Both of you want to stay. Both of you want to prove yourself. But you know what, Onana, and you know what, Højlund, you were not good enough for me last season. I came 15th last season, and you were a big reason behind it, Onana, with your mistakes, and Højlund with your ability not to score goals. So I don't care that you want to stay. I'm going to sign your replacements, and if you want to stay, you won't play, so I'd recommend leaving. It's pretty much what Amorim had said to the Manchester United players when you deep it, and it's quite a brutal approach. Thank you very much, Mustafa, for becoming a member. Appreciate that. Alice, at least credit should go to Amorim and Ineos by getting rid of the bomb squad and player power. Lastly, let's be patient as rebuilding takes centre stage. I think elements of the bomb squad and making it so public was not a good idea because I do think we could have got 10 million more for Alejandro Garnacho. I will praise Ineos and Amorim for exactly how they handled Højlund and Onana. I think the bomb squad, we got rid of the players, but we didn't get rid of them permanently, or the ones that we did get rid of permanently, we lost a lot of money on them in the sense of I think we could have got 10 million more for Anthony and Garnacho, but you could say that's out of Manchester United's fans because Garnacho and Anthony rejected literally every club, Betis and Chelsea, so we were never going to get the money that we wanted. But if you compare Chelsea selling their bomb squad to us, I think we could have done better with the selling of the bomb squad, but they're gone and the wages are gone, and that is the most important thing. But what I will give massive praise to Ineos and Ruben Amorim on is Højlund and Onana. You know, under the previous regime, Højlund and Onana would still be at Manchester United. We wouldn't have signed Sesko and we wouldn't have signed Lemens. And our reasoning behind not signing Sesko and Lemens or not signing a striker and goalkeeper this summer would have been we can't sell Højlund, we can't sell Onana, so we're not going to sign a goalkeeper and a striker. Man United went and signed their striker, and all of a sudden, completely just dropped Højlund, Amorim from the squad, and Højlund all of a sudden, he was begging to stay, saying he wasn't going anywhere, insistent on staying, left. Onana was turning down clubs insistent on staying. You make him second choice behind Baindir, then you bring in a goalkeeper, he becomes becomes third choice, and Nana's like, crap, okay, I'm not going to play. The way that Manchester United have gone about Onana and Højlund is very smart. You know, some people might not like the approach, it's brutal. Some people might go, oh, I feel sorry for Højlund, he gave everything, and he did. And it's a shame it didn't work for Højlund because he really wanted to make it work, but he just was not good enough, and we didn't make the environment for that, but he also was not good enough. But, you know, Højlund and Onana wouldn't have gone. They were refusing to go because their place was safe. We hadn't brought their replacements. The minute we just completely drop Højlund and Onana from the squad and we buy their replacements, they have a change of stance. And that is the way going forward. And that is what Ruben Amorim is scaring other Man United players about. You know, Manuel Ugarte is a player that, you know, if we go and sign Baleba and Elliot Anderson, Manuel Ugarte might be dropped from the squad and he'll be having to look for answers after 2 years. Because we know with Barada, it's 2 years to prove yourself or you're out. Like, the Man United players are sitting there and they're sitting a little bit nervy. They're like, if I don't perform this season, Ruben Amorim's just going to buy my replacement. Ineos is just going to buy my replacement and I am gone. There's a lot of players at Man United that are very much on the edge. Maguire and Casemiro are set to leave because their contract expires and we don't want to give them high wages. But we sit here and, you know, if Mason Mount has another injury-prone season, despite Amorim loving him, he'll be on the chopping block looking for a new club. A guy has a bad season. He's on the chopping block looking for a new club. Xerxes even. I like Xerxes, but he could even go. And that is the approach which has a lot of Man United fans like a bit scared. You know, they can't sit here and demand high wages. They can't sit here and run their contracts down if they want to play, or they're not going to, you know, we go buy their replacements. And it's sort of a good way of ending power. I like the approach. Your manager isn't good enough to talk about that. Look, we can have conversations about that when football returns, in my opinion. Like, for me, there's things about Amorim I really like, and there's things about Amorim I don't like. As of now, we've won a game, we've drawn a game, or we've lost a game. The game that we lost, we probably deserved more out of. Let's have a conversation about the manager and form when more games have happened, I think. You know, I look at it and I go, Amorim needs a midfielder. He didn't get one. But I also think there's been games where the opposition has changed their tactics and Amorim's not had a response for that. And I think Amorim needs to be better at seeing out games when we've got a lead, closing out games, sort of. I think Amorim needs to be better at closing out games with adapting tactics, but I also think he needs a midfielder. We're going to see how Chelsea, we're going to see how City go and all that. I did my rant about the manager after Grimsby because, look, when we lost to Arsenal, that was not on Amorim one bit when we lost to Arsenal. But when we lost to Grimsby, some of that was on Amorim. And Nana was a disgrace, but we've had our conversations about the manager, and I think it's only fair. Let's see what happens after the international break, City, Chelsea, before we have the same conversations in circle. But Amorim is great because he gives people a chance, but don't improve, they're gone. I mean, that's what I like about Amorim is the way. I have questions over Amorim's tactics for sure, and the way he sets us up, and I have questions over him. But one thing I will never have questions over Amorim is if he doesn't rate you, he's going to get rid of you. And I think his talent ID is better. If you look at Cunha and Mbumo compared to the players that Ten Hag will sign, if you look at the SEG agency, all the players that Ten Hag wanted to sign, I do think Amorim's talent ID and ability of knowing which players to sell and buy is a lot better in that sense, obviously helped by Ineos. But yeah, I also like that Amorim is applying standards to everyone, but, you know, he needs to improve himself, 100%. He needs to improve himself. You know, we can give the players a lot of blame for finishing 15th. They were not good enough. We got behind Amorim in his first season despite losing Europe, despite finishing 15th, but we need to see improvement this season. We need to see improvement for the manager this season. It's not all on the players. We need to see some tactical adaptations and stuff. But look, I want Amorim to succeed. I have concerns for sure, but all I want is Amorim to succeed. I do not want another rebuild. I do not want another manager. I want Amorim to succeed. And there's things that Amorim's going to have to change if he wants to succeed, because, look, if he keeps doing the same thing over and over again and we keep being predictable to play against and we don't have the individual quality to bail us out, we could struggle. But we created the most chances in the first 3 games. We had the most touches in the opposition's box in the first 3 games. The attack looks good. And it's a rebuild and we'll give it a bit of time. Look, if we're sitting here in February and we're like 16th, 17th in the league, that's a disgrace. And yeah, you got to point fingers at Amorim. You know, can't just blame the players for that. But it's early days. I always said, I had a massive rant about Amorim after the Grimsby game, but I said in that Grimsby match, not Amorim out, because you cannot sack a manager that you've just spent 200 million on 3-4 games later. You cannot. And I've always said, I'm not fully convinced by Amorim, but I said you have to give him a bit of time. Even when I was ranting about Amorim after Grimsby, going on a rant, and I think he got it wrong versus Grimsby, I said you cannot spend 200 million on a manager, sack him after 3 games. You've got to give him a couple of games to see if it's going to click, to see if it's going to work, to see how the new signings do, to integrate the new signings. Imagine buying him Sesko, and he's only started Sesko in 1 game and then he's sacked. Like, you have to give it a little bit of time before full season judgment, I think. What's your thoughts on Sesko? Look, I would have rather signed Baleba than Sesko, and I made that clear because I felt that Cunha and Mbeumo solved a lot of goal-scoring issues. We needed a striker, we needed a focal point, but I do worry about the midfield. I think Sesko is an improvement on Højlund. I think he's more ready, but it is just about getting the striker involved, which is something we don't do a lot. You missed your chance to get Ange. I'm glad we didn't get Ange. I think, look what Ange did to Tottenham. I know we won a trophy, but I mean, he was so open. It'll be interesting to see how Ange does at Forest, because Forest, Man United, like Tottenham, managers come to us, do badly, they go elsewhere and they do well. So it'll be interesting to see how Ange does at Forest. Should have got Wissa. I was always considered that as well. Look, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think that there's a good player in Sesko, and I think he's got some really exciting attributes. I do think we overpaid, but I think Sesko could be really good at Manchester United. We just got to be a bit patient and give him time. Be patient and give him time. I do think we overpaid. I do think we should have looked at a midfielder, but I think there's, if we can give Sesko service and create the right environment, there's potentially a monster of a player in there. You've got to remember with Sesko, he's young and we're buying potential. And I think it's annoying because I think we need ready-made more than potential, and we're buying potential again in Sesko. But let's be patient with Sesko and give him time. A lot of people are saying he's overrated, he's crap. Look, I think we overpaid for him. I'm not going to lie about that. I said I would rather us sign someone else than Sesko, but he's a Man United player now, and I'm going to absolutely get behind him. I think there's a lot of potential in there, and I'm going to hope he does well. Now that's fair, Alice. You should generally back him while staying open-ended. I think it's different with Man United because Fergie was so dominant. Your fans expect a high bar. Yeah, but I think we've got to not lower standards too much. I think there's a sense of Fergie was so dominant that, even coming fourth doesn't feel great for Man United. We should be winning league titles. But I feel like because every year we keep getting worse and worse and worse, because we finished 15th last season, top 8 this season is almost considered good, and top 8 should be the necessity. It should be, you have to get top 8 this season. You have to get back in Europe this season. For this to be considered a good season, it's top 5. For me, top 8 is a necessity. I think we have to have standards of, we're not expecting to get top 4. We're not expecting to win the league. But there's some Man United fans that would be happy with 10th place because it's an improvement on 15th. Whereas I'm kind of like, right, we realistically can't get top 4. We have to lower expectations, but we can't lower standards to a point where we're celebrating 10th place. For me, 1 game a week. I know we didn't get a midfielder, but at least get in the Conference League at the bare minimum. Top 5, I celebrate it's a good season. Getting Europe is just good in general. Like, I don't think finishing 11th is a good season, even if we finished 15th last year and finished 4 places higher. I don't think it is. Do you know what I mean? The problem is I have a bit sympathy with Amorim in the sense of he doesn't have the midfield to get top 5. Like, that's a fact. But hopefully we do something in January. There is talk and discussion about Manchester United wanting to bring in a midfielder in January. So hopefully we do that. Luke's got 2 more years left on his contract, so it expires in 2027. There's a feeling United could sell him for cheap this summer. Obviously, he's played quite well this season. He started the first few games. He's doing absolutely fine, but it's only a matter of time before he gets injured again. I think Luke Shaw will run down his contract. I personally think Luke Shaw will run down his contract, but he could be sold in the summer. The way I look at it is Casemiro and Maguire will go because of the contract's expired. I look at Agate. If he doesn't perform, he's out. I look at Luke Shaw. I look at even Mason Mount. And if they have injury issues, Amorim will try and force them out. It will be difficult if they are injured in the transfer window to offload them. But I think Man United will say to Luke Shaw next season, look, if we bring in a centre-back or a left-sided centre-back or a left wing-back, we will say to him, you might as well go. Will he run down his contract? I'm not sure. But I do think Casemiro and Maguire basically confirmed exits. I do think players like Luke Shaw and Agate, they need to have a good season or there's pressure on them. Even a Xerxes needs to have a good season or there's instantly pressure on them. You can say the same about Maino. There's a lot of players inside Man United that need to have a good season this year or they are going to be pretty much gone. Their replacements will be brought and then it's up to them if they want to stay and make money but not play at all. I think, Luke Shaw, Mason Mount, Maino, Agate, Dallo, I think all of those players I've just named need to have a good season, because they I think replacements will be looked at if they don't. So yeah, I want to talk about Amorim's sort of ruthless approach, people, and what Amorim's looking to do. So Amorim's approach is, before more you're gone. Nobody's safe under Amorim. United have got this bomb squad that is growing as the clear out continues. We've got the bomb squad: Garnacho, Anthony, Rashford, Sancho have all gone. Malacia will probably go. Højlund and Onana, who wanted to stay, got forced out. It is Højlund and Onana. You wanted to stay, you're refusing to leave, but we've now signed your replacements and you've gone. If you don't perform, you're gone. And you might not like that Højlund, you might not like that Onana, but you did not perform. It's trying to get rid of player power. Players on high wages are being forced out. Players that Amorim doesn't rate are being forced out. Replacements are being brought. You know, Maguire and Casemiro's exit this summer will likely prove that while they're in the leadership squad, you know, because of their high wages, their contracts aren't going to be renewed because Ineos are changing their wage structure. They're trying to reduce the limit of player power. And, you know, Casemiro and Maguire, I think, will be key players for us this season, but I don't think they'll stay beyond this season. And there's a fear inside the Man United squad now that if you don't perform this year, you'll be replaced. Look, if Amorim has a bad season, they might buy a little bit more time, because if a new manager comes in, etc. But these players know that if Amorim finishes 7th next season or 6th next season, Ineos are going to keep him. And if this player and this player didn't have a good season, then Ineos will be buying a replacement, and it's up to you to say, am I going to stay and not play, or am I going to go and play football? You know? Nuno is available to replace Amorim if things don't work out. I wouldn't want Nuno to replace Amorim. I know we've got European football Forest, but I wouldn't want Nuno to replace Amorim. He's got one game plan, and when that doesn't work, he doesn't know what to do. And I think we've got that issue at the moment, a bit more defensive. So I personally wouldn't want Nuno. I wouldn't want Ange. There's not really a manager available right now that I would want, and that's why, again, another reason I really want Amorim to succeed is I have concerns around Amorim. I have frustrations of things he does that I'm worried about. And look, if we're looking bad in December time, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get behind Amorim. I've got sympathy that he hasn't got a midfielder, but I do think some of his tactical decisions are wrong. But I want Amorim to succeed. There's not a manager on the market right now that I think can come in and do that much better. I'm not fully convinced. Like, Iriola's a good manager, Marcus Silva's a good manager, but am I convinced they would come in and do this and do that? Not quite yet. There's not many good managers on the market. I don't want to go through another rebuild. We just got to hope that it works with Amorim. Ineos not getting a midfielder, it could cost him, and we just got to hope that he finds a way to make it work. And Amorim needs to learn to adapt and be better at certain things for sure. Would you take Moyes? No. Eddie Howe is probably, you know, if you're looking at replacements, Eddie Howe's probably near the top of the list, but the manager options aren't great. Yeah. Keep dreaming Amorim won't go anywhere. You can tell Ineos rate him and backing him. I don't know how much Ineos rate him, but I think Ineos are backing him because they're saying, this is the manager we sat Tanar for. This is the manager we brought in mid-season. We have to back him. We have to give him a bit of time. I think Ineos are with the stance of we've got to back him. We've got to give him a bit of time. I think that is probably a little bit of the stance that they are at. Glasner. Apparently, there's rumours of Glasner wanting to leave Palace, but they kept Gay, so I think Glasner and Eddie Howe will be linked to. Would you sack Amorim if we lost to City? No. But if we went and lost our next 6 games in a row, then yeah. If we looked at like we're going to get relegated, then yes. But if we lost to City, I wouldn't sack him, no. Problems at the club are really deep and they'll take time. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not just you sack Amorim and things get better. There's a lot of deeper issues at the club. There's definitely things Amorim can do to improve. And, you know, I'm not fully convinced by him. But it's not sack a manager and this club is fixed. We've done it many times. There's a lot of deeper issues at the club that need to be fixed that hopefully will be fixed soon. In terms of news, actually, United have kept an eye on Elliot Anderson, which would be a nice one. Obviously, Baleba is the guy that, you know, we dream of. We're going to see if we can get Baleba in January, but there's a feeling we probably won't be able to get Baleba in January. It'll be a difficult deal to do unless his form has dropped, which, you know. But Romano said the club's position is clear, that they even want to get a midfielder. They want to get a midfielder in the next few windows, and the player they want is Baleba. Romano said it's clear. Baleba's who we want. That's the player we want. That's the midfielder we want. We're going to try for Baleba in January. I think we will probably more likely get him in the summer, but we're going to try for Baleba in January. Do you think it's sad that we signed so many players that could have been great and are just not here anymore? Yeah. You look at Garnacho, you look at Rashford, you look at Anthony, you look at Sancho. There's 4 players that could have had good futures at Manchester United and could have been good players, or there was an excitement when we signed them, or they first broke through, and they're no longer at the club. And sometimes things don't work out, and it's a shame, but you have to do what's best for the club. Look, I think Garnacho is going to be a really good player for Chelsea. I hope I'm wrong, but I think he's going to be a really good player for Chelsea, and that worries me. But Garnacho had to go. Like, as much as I think that there's a good player in Garnacho, even though he was inconsistent last year and frustrating last year, he had to go because he acted like a prick. I like Baleba, but he's overpriced. I agree. If we could get Baleba at 80 million in January, bish, bash, bosh. Do you think we get Baleba in January? I think it depends on Baleba's form and where Brighton are at, to be honest. Fabrizio did hint that Amorim was under pressure in a podcast comment about Maino. Look, Amorim is under pressure. Ineos are back to Amorim because that's what they had to do this summer. They didn't bring in the midfielder, but Amorim is under pressure. Like, I honestly think if we were sitting for 16th in December, Amorim would be sacked. I think he is under pressure. I think there's a sense of Ineos that want to give him time, want to make it work. But I wouldn't sit here and say Amorim's job is 100% safe. No, I think, he's got the first half of the season to make a big impression. And I think if it gets to December time and he hasn't, he could be out the door. I think Ineos will look at the underlying numbers and look at the underlying stats for the start of the season and say, look, these numbers are good. These stats are good. Hopefully the results come. But look, I don't think Ineos are going to sack him after 4 or 5 games. I don't think he's going to be sacked in the next 2 months, Ruben Amorim, even if things are bad. I think Ineos will want to give him a bit of time. But I do think if things were bad in December, I wouldn't look at Amorim and think he's untouchable. And Boomer and Amad to go to AFCON will be a big, big blow. Anana obviously isn't a blow anymore. Are we losing anyone else to AFCON? Is it Mazraoui? And Mazraoui, Amad, and Boomer. Our right side's going to be cooked. But look, Liverpool, I remember them losing Salah and Mane, and they went to AFCON and they were still okay. So hopefully we get a similar situation at Manchester United where even though we lost a few key players, we actually end up being okay. I mean, that's sort of the situation that I'm hoping for. Big up everybody watching. Big up everybody watching today's live show, by the way, discussing all the latest United news. We won't get Baleba because of AFCON. That might make Baleba deal more difficult. Yeah. Do you think we'll have a good season? Mixed thoughts. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to be positive, but mixed thoughts, to be honest. I think it depends on injuries, how the players click on. I think there's a confidence is needed, and I think if we do get a few wins, we could have a good season. I think if we beat Man City and beat Chelsea and got 3 wins in a row, I think that could do us a lot for confidence. And look, we've done better against the bigger teams under Ruben Amorim, so what's not to say we can't do that? I'm actually more confident of us beating Man City than I would of us beating Sunderland. So we just seem to do better under the bigger teams under Amorim. So yeah, and look, we've got some good players. Like Lenny Yoro's a top player, and Boomer's a top player, Cunha's a top player, Mount's looking good, Bruno's a top player. We've got some good players at United. De Ligt is much better than he gets credit for online. Let's hope Lemens succeeds. Let's hope Sesko succeeds. Let's hope we sign a good midfielder like Baleba, Elliot Anderson in January, and let's hope that Amorim succeeds. Like, we've just got to be positive. It's international break. We won our last game against Burnley. I know it wasn't the best way to win a game. The second half wasn't great, but there was an encouraging first half. Let's just hope we're more clinical and we can do better at stuff. But yeah, big up everybody that is watching. Big up to everybody. I will be back tomorrow with a live show. I'm going to redirect you over to Cass. So give Never a Fowler Aid. Thank you for watching. Bye.